Well, hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of Harebrained Games. This is the starting video in a series that I'd like to do, a newer series type than I've done in the past. I usually have done weekend games and reviews. Now I'm going to start, and occasionally some top tens or such. For the most part, those comprise 99% of what this channel represents. I'm going to start a new series where I basically talk about my favorite games from different publishers, and that's going to be, I want to do one where we do like my favorite games of a given designer, but I also want to do one's favorite games from different publishers, distributors, and so that's what this is going to be. This time we're going to feature and showcase a company close to my heart, GMT Games. GMT Games has been around for a long time. It is run by just a distinguished and gentlemanly individual, Gene Billingsley, and he has a cadre of really talented, really just, I think, brilliant designers, design team, game developers, just some really great people from GMT. And so I'm going to go through and tell you my top favorite GMT games, and we'll start there. But first, honorable mention, there are a couple games that I think have been instrumental, but not necessarily ones that I had put in the top 10, because, and this was a hard list to do because I rarely dislike a GMT title. I rarely do. So with that, I'm going to go through and give credit to Paths of Glory, which has been around since, wow, it's been around a while, 90, 2000, 20, 2000, yeah, 2000. It's been around for decades, and it is kind of the watershed moment of gaming, and I was late to the game playing it, but I really liked it. And the other one is the Dominant Species series. There's two now. I got into it a little bit. I thought that they were great, like fun games, just not ones that quite hit the pinnacle of my top 10 games. And so with that, without further ado, let's get into it. My top 10 games, favorite games of GMT's lineup. Number 10 is going to be Conquest of Paradise. Now, Conquest of Paradise is one of the rare sort of 4X kind of games built in a Polynesian setting. Why this one really resonates with me is that it tells a not like really untapped story, and you really feel like you're starting out, you're expanding out, you're finding other places. There's a discovery element. You don't know. You're not having a set map. You don't know what you're going to discover as you branch out. And as you branch out and you find and settle different islands, and then you build up a force, but you're not, this isn't a fighting game per se. I mean, there's a low lethality rate to the combat here. It's kind of funny, but it's really good. Like, really good. How's that? How's that for the most specific reason? But there's a lot of things about the way the game plays out that show just a depth of research, and I honestly I bring it to the table, we play it, it's fun, it's got a charm to it that you won't always see. And I am a sucker for narrative, and so you might see this list skewed in that regard. All right, number 9 is Churchill. Churchill takes World War II, and instead of making it a fighting game, it makes it a negotiation, high-level, global decision-making game, and it works really well. You are vying for issues, and that sounds really boring, but you've got your left side of the table where you're vying for issues and trying to figure out who wins the issues. Is it the Russians? Is it the British? Or is it the Americans, the United States? And each one of those, when you have the historical card play that goes on with it, real people with their specific abilities made manifest, and then once you're done with all that negotiation, then you go over to the right side and you get this high level map. It's really just tracks, but it feels like a conflict, like a battlefront going back and forth. You've got some really interesting, it's so high level that you're not going to feel like, oh, send this platoon here or there. It's like, this is how the war's going in one simple block. But there's a lot of richness to how that even at that high bird's eye view, how that plays out. And so Churchill it's best at 3. The bots make it fine at 2, and I've even played at 1 and been just fine. So Churchill, number 9. Number 8 This one has to be Space Empires. Space Empires is such a throwback to a true 4X. And not only Space Empires, it's you got your sheet, you're writing down your units, you're going out and you're spreading out into this world. This is the consummate, magnifico 4X space game. It's done well. It has two expansions with a third final expansion on its way, and that's just going to make it sort of the complete package. It is old school, so you don't get beautiful, gorgeous miniatures and plastic figurines and stuff. You're getting the experience of a game that I believe the designer said took him 20 years to refine and really get. But it feels like you're playing an epic space strategy 4X game. By the way, 4X is explore, expand, exploit, and exterminate. For those who were curious, I always forget. Not everyone knows this vernacular. Right, number 7, Imperial Struggle. Imperial Struggle is the new, well, it's an extension of another game called Twilight Struggle, and Imperial Struggle is a large scale of, you got your English and your French, and that's really the big fight. And the thing about this game is that it's sprawling, it's massive, it's really overwhelming to look at it first. There aren't that many similarities to its predecessor. It takes a while to learn, it takes a while to teach, it doesn't take long to enjoy. There's a lot going on. You've got your conflicts, you've got your expansion. Every time you start off expanding in the spheres, your 4 spheres. You've got your European sphere, and then your African, your North America, and the realms just keep going on, and you're expanding out, and you have so many micro decisions to make that are pleasant and enjoyable. You've got little bonuses, things you're trying to do. It's really intricate. And that, again, this is a game that's going to take hours and hours to play. I have not played a short game of Imperial Struggle, but it is definitely one that's made an impact and is memorable and well worthy of the accolades that it has received. So, and then number 6, Enemy Coast Ahead Doolittle Raid. This is a recreation in a semi-linear narrative story of the Doolittle Raid. And what's enjoyable about this, as it is with all of the designer's games, is that he really does set out to tell a story, and you're going to play a part in that story. Does that get boring because it's so, it's a story? Does it end differently? Yes, it does. Because during that place, you're not dealing with, okay, the ships are flying over, let's see how they drop the bombs. Okay, they did okay. You start off at the very beginning, like you're making decisions that seem inconsequential. Like, how much do you keep people's lips sealed on this? Do you get a bonus if on the one hand, if you let people have a break that might help morale, or I forget that. If not, then you're going to have an opportunity to make sure that you don't wind up having information passed on later that's going to hamper and inhibit the crew. Then you have to pick how the ships that you're taking, the ships, the crew, everything. These seem like boring things, like, just get to the fun already. The problem is all that is the fun. You are picking it, and then you're worrying about these checks to make sure, like some of the boats, they don't quite make it. The crew, how do you outfit them? What things do they have? What trade-offs? It's a game of trade-offs. Then you go into the actual, how do we navigate? How do we get as close as we can to Tokyo without getting detected? And if we do, how do we handle that? And then you have the entire mini, like it's almost a game unto itself, of going in and actually bombing whatever targets you picked, because again, there's flexibility there. And then it's not even just we bombed it, how well did we do okay? No, then you got to figure out where to land and how you're going to figure that out, because all the things that they had to contend with that nobody ever got in the World War II movies of the 40s and 50s, all of those choices and decisions that were agonizing and stressful, all of those are your choices, and you're going to make them all the way across. So definitely the high point for me was the Doolittle Raid, Enemy Coast Ahead Doolittle Raid. So, and then number 5 is Fire in the Lake. Now this could be, I could have swapped this out for any other coin games. Coin games are counterinsurgency games. They're a special style of game where you don't have a battlefield with units on the battle. You have sort of a fight for the minds and hearts of people in every faction of every faction that fights in a coin game has a different motivation and even a different victory condition. That's what makes it so crazy. A lot of coin-based games are on there. I have a video that's what is a coin game that you can check out on this channel too, that kind of goes into more specifics in it. But Fire of the Lake is really the thing I love about Fire in the Lake is just how much it breaches again into the story and the detail and the historical narrative of the Vietnam conflict, and what the motivations are of the sides and why they're what they are and how you maneuver that and handle that, and the idea that you're taking events in real life in somewhat, not in a true sequential fashion, but in some fashion events are going to come up that are going to hamper, hinder, help benefit you, your side. When you really have this game going with 4 players and it's really running on 4 cylinders, it is a dream. Fire in the Lake is, it's not the, again, like Liberty or Death, there's, oh my gosh, Pendragon, there's so many different coin games, that Gandhi, that really have taken the thing and steered it around. But Fire in the Lake is probably the one that I consider just the piece de perfection. So anyway, that's number 5. Number 4 is very new. This was my game of the year for 2021, and it is Bayonets and Tomahawks. I've already waxed poetic on it a couple months ago when I did my top 10 games of 2021, but suffice to say that Bayonets and Tomahawks is a game that it doesn't take a system and wrap it in a theme. It takes a theme and does whatever it takes to make the systems match it. It takes real units, real people, real conflict, real areas, and it basically makes a smooth, just recreation of the French-Indian conflicts. And the combat is weird. Like you have, if you have a big army and you have little light skirmish units, they can't even fight each other. They just zip right on by. How does that work? It does well. Everything makes sense. You've got a nice sequential flow of battle that's like, oh, I get it. Big armies fighting, and you've got like raiding, you've got relationships with the Indian tribes and stuff all to contend with. It's so beautiful, so polished. Clearly the designer, and from what I've read from his notes, really is immersed in this particular title, and it shows. It's like whatever is needed to make the game reflect the polished vision of the times is what he did, and I really respect that. So number 4, Bayonets and Tomahawks. Number 3 is Nevsky. Now, why is Nevsky interesting? Well, Nevsky is one of the first in a Levian campaign series. Again, you're not dealing with simple, I put my units on the map, you put yours on the map, we roll the dice, we move our mice, nobody gets hurt. Or everybody gets hurt. That's not what Nevsky is. Nevsky is all about the build-up. It's all about the dealing with the between a conflict, like a battle happening on the ground, or between the high-level strategic moving armies. There's a part in the middle that Nevsky fulfills and no other game has, and that is how do I handle getting enough supplies and resources, marshaling units, convincing people to join me for a certain amount of time, making sure they're fed, making sure I find some way to go in to like go and get into enemy territory, take some over, pillage, raise, whatever, and still get back and not have my people mad, not have certain you levy your forces and they last a certain time, and if you don't fall, if they'll go away again, maybe they'll come back, maybe they won't, depending on how well you led. But that whole middle ground between like skirmish battles and high level strategy is really where Nevsky shines, and I can see why they've turned it into a system, which Almoravid is the next game coming out from it. But it's the battle again, this is a battle. When you get into battles and conflicts, you've got a really sequential flow with some really clever interactions between different phases of your horseback units, your infantry. If you're going to do a siege, how that happens, and it's just really intricate. You play it and you're happy that you did. We'll put it that way, because at least I was, because when you play it, you see the sort of the brilliant design of all the things, and suddenly it's like you actually care. Usually it's just like, okay, am I in supply or am I not in supply? No, this one's like, no, you got to bring them over. And is it winter? Can I use sleds? Or is it not? Do I have to use other things to move my units along roads and whatever? What sounds trite and trivial and boring is actually one of the highlight features of Nevsky. So that's that. Now we're at number 2. Number 2 is a storytelling machine. It is Combat Commander Europe, Pacific. We'll go with Europe. Combat Commander is a diceless game that really that puts it is the consummate war-telling machine. You feel like you're sort of reenacting or like interacting with a movie, in the 40s, like when like Battle of the Bulge, The Longest Day, etc. You really are you care about your units in Combat Commander, and each of the scenarios as you build it up, as you're going on, you like, oh, think I got this in the bag. Oh wait, something happened that the ring did not intend. And something broke, something happened, some event happened that messes with it, not to the degree that it becomes nonsensical. That's the beauty of it. Like, you are in the middle of war, and anything can happen in war, but if you don't do it right, you wind up with chaos, and chaos, unfun chaos. That's not what Combat Commander does. You feel like you're in a story, in a mission. If you win, you earned it. If you lost, you things happen to still make it entertaining. I definitely miss the designer. A big loss to board gaming industry. But this is definitely his finest hour. I think was Combat Commander. So, c'est la vie. And finally, the number 1 game from GMT. In fact, the number 1 game of all time for me, has never swayed, it's never changed. It's Twilight Struggle. Twilight Struggle is the consummate experience of a lifetime. When you play it for the first time, you're like, wow, this is Cold War. This is the Cold War incarnate. It is beautiful. It is dancing on a knife's edge. It is stress. It is like triumph. It is, oh my gosh, agonizing in all the right ways. It is the best recreation of a game period ever. You feel the Cold War. You know what it was like. Whether you're on the Russians or whether you're the U.S., you will get good. If this game hits you and goes, this is for me, you will know this game like the back of your hand. You will study this game for years. You will work on the card play like a chess master. You will figure out what it takes, how to go back and forth, how to survive the early game as the Americans, how to last as the Russians. Oh my gosh. Everything fits, everything works. It is board gaming perfection. So, Twilight Struggle, you're still the one, baby. Now, before I leave, I want to also point out top 5 games that I respect. These are games that might not have made the top 10 list as far as I'm enjoying it, it's awesome, it's cool, but these are games that I respect, some from afar, some closer up, that I think deserve mention and merit, that I either haven't gotten enough plays in yet, or that I don't feel like I've mastered enough yet to really proffer an authoritative opinion. But that are ones that I can look at and go, wow, something here is really, really cool. Number 5 would be Fields of Fire. Fields of Fire is a card game that simulates platoon level battle, skirmish level battle. It is complex as heck. It just is. Like, I've tried and I've learned it. And it's procedural. If you're logical mind, it'll make sense to you. It layers on a lot of things, like how do I run telephone wire? That level of granularity. That's not for everybody. But I will say that Fields of Fire really, really imbues with cards. Like, the terrain is cards. Like the your roll, no dice, cards. It is clever as heck. But it is an investment, and it is all. I have Fields of Fire 2. I plan to get the new one, Fields of Fire Bulge. It's got a big. I'm not gonna lie. It's got a big barrier to entry. Some people who get it and understand it really enjoy it. Might not realize it for others, but some of us with mortal minds, it's a tricky one. But once you get into it, and once you feel that, and you see that, and you look down at this battlefield of cards, playing cards, but then you see. On there, you see your units. You see them getting. It's sort of a Combat Commander feel, but with amped up details that just hit you So Fields of Fire is one, I respect this design immensely. Number 4 is Atlantic Chase, mostly because it just blows ideas out of the water. Like sometimes you go like, you man, that was a really good game. I could have envisioned that, and then you come up with one like, there's no way in heck I ever would have thought this up. Atlantic Chase is that game. You are basically chasing. You're in the Atlantic. You're chasing boats that you don't know where they are, and even the other side that knows the boats doesn't know where they are, because it's all about somewhere along this line is a boat, and it's your job to narrow it down over time, to find this boat. It's crazy. It's enveloping tale and narrative of immense proportion, hundreds of pages of resources in the book, of scenarios, of tutorials, of explanation. It is like nothing you've really ever played, in my opinion. I would love, if anyone knows of anything that even remotely is like Atlantic Chase, I'd like to know, because it blew me away. So number 3 is Here I Stand. This is an older game from the mid 2000s that I think one of my friends called it diplomacy done right, where you really are just ensconced in this crazy five nation, I think it's 2 to 5 nation, experience of just, it takes hours and hours of just all that time period. I don't even know. Props to you. Number 2 is Cataclysm. Cataclysm is a sandbox World War II game. And that's the part that I find incredibly engrossing, but yet have yet to really feel like I've mastered it to the degree that I can speak authoritatively on it. In Cataclysm, stuff is not guaranteed. You are not, usually when you play a World War II game, certain things are set in stone. The Germans, they'll attack Russia. Americans, British, the Allies, they'll attack Germany. France is screwed, stuff like that, except for the resistance part. So sorry my French friend. The reality of Cataclysm is that it sets it up as a sandbox where anything can happen, and that's what makes it like curiously interesting. You might not wind up with the initial starting configuration that you expect. Maybe certain things do happen. There's certain rules. Certain things just can't happen. They're not going to go like, hey, the Germans and the Americans team up. That's not going to happen. But there are things and phases that make the game go way out into almost an alternate reality style. But at the same time, staying true to the idea that it still gears you toward a historical. It sort of tries to lead you toward historical. Well, to the historical end game of it, but at the same time, it's got a crazy little chit system where you're like, okay, I'm gonna take it. I'm trying to get beefed up. There's not a ton of units on the board. This isn't grand strategy where you're moving 50 miniatures. You're not. But where you move them, what you do, how you set up your relationships with others, it's really, really, really unusual, and I think that design deserves merit. Plus, the designer is very active. He's been doing living rules for years, it seems like, and has tried really hard to address when people are playing the snot out of this game and they're finding stuff and going, this is, I feel strongly about this, whatever. I think he's wrapping up the living rules because I'm sure he wants to get on with his life, but I do respect greatly both the design and the designer's penchant to continue to support this well after it was released. So, and finally, the number 1 game that I respect and have yet to really feel mastery on is The Last 100 Yards. I had an opportunity to see this game. I got this game. It's still like way over my head. I know that it should be simple. The examples are crazy there. Like it's got this sort of like real-time step time action. It's not my turn, your turn. That's momentum seeking, and you've got like a firing handling system that's just out of this world. It's just different. I really liked the maps with their terrain level. It's just really nicely done. setup. It's small scale to the degree you're dealing on the ground. The idea is you're dealing with what people really did deal with in those wars, which is chaos, which is anything can happen, which is what just sort of a similar to a combat commander, but much more in depth to me, or at least different enough that I am yet to fathom. And I have all three last 100 yards. I have the second one, and I just got the third one. But I even had the designer actually came to one of the game conferences, and I actually sat and watched him teach that game almost 4 days straight to people. And you could see as he was teaching it, I still, even after he taught it to me, I didn't quite get it, but I think part of it's just like the stimuli and all that being around. But just watching people really just get that game and just go, people coming back, like, oh man, I want to try that again. I thought I can do better and stuff. And just the system that he made is just otherworldly. Again, I haven't played a ton of the old previous ones, but I can tell you that this is just, it really recreates a lot of the feel of authentic, like, at your eye level combat. So anyway, that's it. That's what we have. That's the top 10 favorite games of mine from GMT, as well as the top 5 ones I respect, but probably haven't really delved in enough yet to see. But anyway, what are your favorites? What do you like? I know that everyone has different ones, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on it. So with that, take care. We'll see you next time on Harebrained Games.